Hi guys, welcome to Believers Academy. Okay, so today what happened recently in today's newspaper, you might have read recently the High Court of Karnataka has stayed this circular which was passed by the Karnataka government, and in that circular Karnataka government had extended the RTE provision for 9th and 10th standard. As you are aware, RTE is one of the most important topic when it comes to our UPSC preparation or any other exams also. Okay, so in this regard, let's understand what is RTE. Okay, what is RTE, which is right to education. So right to education, it's a landmark legislation guarantee what? Free and compulsory education. For whom? For every child. Whoever the child in India, everyone will get at the age of 16 to 14 years, every child in India will get free and compulsory education. And most important thing is, it is a fundamental rights. Okay, right to education is basically fundamental rights. And when did it came into force? On 1st April 2010. Okay, let's understand what are its evolution. Okay, let's understand what are its evolution starting from its constitution. So earlier, as you know, right, free and compulsory education was in the Article 45, which is DPSP. Okay, DPSP, and it was made as fundamental rights through 86th Constitution Amendment Act of 2002. Okay, and a new article was introduced, and that article is Article 21A, which says right to freedom and compulsory education for the children at the age of 16 to 14, between age 16 to 14 years. Okay, and a new provision was added in Article 45 as a replacement of this, that was early childhood care and education for the children. You have to understand below 6 years. Who are below 6 years, for them early childhood care and education for the children. Okay, and in Article 45, what does it say? Promotion of educational interest of weaker section. Basically, helping weaker section or the children from weaker section to get education. And next is Article 51A subclause K. Here it is basically fundamental duties. We are talking about fundamental duties. In fundamental duties, it is the duty of the parents to educate the children between the age of 6 to 14. We know there are various fundamental rights. In that, providing education for their children who are between the age of 16 to 14 is considered to be a fundamental duty. Okay, so in this regard, we'll understand some of the landmark cases of Supreme Court. Okay, Supreme Court judgment where all the cases, in whichever the cases, the Supreme Court has actually upheld the right to education policy. So first we'll see about Mohini Jain versus State of Karnataka. In this case, Supreme Court has said education recognized as integral part of what? Right to life. Okay, right to life talks about Article 21, and right to education talks about precursor to Article 21A. Next case is Unni Krishnan versus State of Andhra Pradesh, where court explicitly recognized right to education for children up to certain age, reinforcing the state's obligation, which means it is the obligation of the state to provide free and compulsory education. Okay, and next is Society for Unaided Private Schools versus Union of India, where it upheld the constitutional validity of this particular act. Okay, which act? Right to Education Act of 2009. Okay, this is where it was upheld again. Now we'll understand from amendment to act. We already understood that earlier it was mentioned in Article 45 of DPSP and it was made as fundamental rights under Article 21A, under Article 1A through 86th Constitution Amendment Act of 2002. Okay, I hope you have understood. Here, the RTE Act did not emerge in isolation. It rooted in transformation of constitutional amendment that elevated education from policy goals to fundamental rights. This is what earlier it was policy goals. Now it was made as fundamental rights through this amendment. Okay, as you can see here, 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2022 inserted Article 21A, making education a fundamental rights for the children at the age of between 6 to 14 years, and RTE Act was enacted in 2009 and it came into force in, you have to remember the difference between when, in which year it was enacted and in which year it was came into force. Okay, and we have already discussed Article 51A subclause K, which talks about fundamental duties of whom? Fundamental duties of parents and children to send their children who are between the age of 16 to 14. Okay, they have to be provided compulsory education. Okay, further we'll see what do you mean by free and compulsory. Okay, we'll understand these keywords. What do you mean by right to education? We talks about free and compulsory education. Now we'll understand what is free and what is compulsory education. In here, free means free education. Basically, no fees has to be paid. No child shall pay any fees, charges, expenses that could prevent them completing from elementary education. Here, who will bear all the costs? Cost will be bear by entirely by the government itself. Government will bear full cost of the education. Okay, so right to and compulsory education. Next important keyword is compulsory education, which means government and the local authorities. And the local authorities are, you have to understand, they are legally bound. They are legally bound to ensure admission, attendance and completion of elementary education of every child. Who are responsible? First is government and second one is local authorities. Okay, here local authorities includes all the panchayat members as well. Okay, now we'll come to key provisions every parent should know. Okay, first thing is neighborhood schools, which means if you want to provide free education, free and compulsory education, the schools has to be very near to their houses, right? If schools are very far, then it will not motivate either for children or for the parents to join them. So that is the reason the government must establish school with reasonable distance. Okay, this is one of the key provisions of the act. And next is no capitation fees. Collecting any donation or capitation fees at the time of admission is strictly prohibited. Any kind of donation or any hidden charges should not be taken by the children. Okay, because it is free education. Next is no screening test. No screening test, basically what we are trying to tell is there is no entrance exam also. Okay, children should not write any entrance exam or interviews for the admission of any class. Okay, and students or the children should not be punished. There is no physical punishment. Okay, there is no physical punishment and it is completely banned under this act. Okay, this is Right to Education Act. Next landmark provision is 25% of the reservation in private schools has to be given to the right to information. Here only 25% of this should be given to all the schools. Let's say if a private school has 100 seats, okay, if private school has 100 seats, in those 100 seats, 25% of the seats has to be given to the poor people who will come under right to education. Okay. Now, if poor people are getting admitted, all the money will be reimbursement by the government. Government will provide them the admission fees or whatever the fees the private school is charging, it is given by the government. Okay. The government will get everything. And objective is to social inclusion and equity. Basically, providing quality educations for the students. Okay. So, standards every school must meet. Here, whichever school is adopting right to education should have minimum norms and standard which they have to maintain, whether it is every government school and private school must fulfill this to operate legally. Okay. The first thing here is infrastructure. Here, when I say infrastructure, basically a basic infrastructure a school should have. The first and foremost thing is classrooms, drinking water facility, toilets, playgrounds, and most important thing is boundary walls. Okay. It is mandatory. These are the things that is mandatory. And teachers, a qualified teachers with proper training should be there, and the pupil teacher ratio is for every 30 students there have to have one teacher has to be there. For every 30 students one teacher has to be there, and working hours, which is minimum working days, basically minimum working days. Here they have to conduct classes for 200 working days, which is minimum 200 days they have to conduct classes for these students, and no detention, which means they can't fail these students. Okay, till they pass class 8th. Okay, and next is school management committee and governance. School management committee and governance. What is this school management committee? This is mostly, it is consist of mostly parents, guardians, and local representatives and teachers. Here, local representative basically are those who are your MPs and MLA or panchayat members. So what do? Mainly they monitor the functioning and prepare school development plans and ensure meaningful community participation in the education, which says all the community or all the sections of the society should be involved in this education process. Next is government responsibility. Now, central government will set the national framework for at the central level. Like if you take the example of CBSE and all, central government will fix, and in state level, it is of state government who will build the schools and recruit teachers and all. It will be done by state authorities at state level, and local authorities should identify out of school children and ensure their enrollment. Okay. Next is what are the impact? What impact it has created, the challenges and road ahead. The first thing, what are the achievements? The right to education, basically it makes sure there is universal enrollment of education has increased significantly. Okay. Next thing is reduction in dropout rate. Okay. The school dropout rate has significantly reduced among especially girls and marginalized community. Next, third thing is strengthening social inclusion through 25% of reservation clause, which we had already discussed. Next is improvement of human capital and long-term employment. Even a person with having basic knowledge can become a long-term employee in any other organizations of the society, and they can be human capital for the industries. Next is, we'll discuss some of the challenges. The most important challenge when it comes to right to education is infrastructure. Okay, lack of infrastructure and sanitation facility, including shortage of classrooms as well. Okay. Next is teachers vacancy. There is no regular filling of teachers vacancy, especially in state governments. Okay, in central governments, though there are some issues, but especially when it comes to state governments, teachers recruitment has not been done. Okay, uneven quality of teaching outcome, which is a student who is studying in, let's say example, some metropolitan city, will take example of Bangalore, will get quality education when compared to some interior districts. If we take example of some interior districts of UP and Bihar, the quality education is not with par with metropolitan cities. Okay. Fund constraints, especially with state governments. And lastly, what will happen to the children below 6 years and above 14 years as they are out of this act. Okay. So we are talking about children who are below 6 years and children above 14 years. This act will only cover the age group which is of 6 to 14 years and does not cover the other criteria. This is one of the drawbacks of this Right to Education Act. Through this act, we are able to understand what is, through this discussion, basically, we were able to understand completely what is right to education and what are its provisions. Through this, we'll conclude this topic. Okay, thank you so much.